Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's war on Iran is threatening your living standards. Trump and Netanyahu chose to launch military action against Iran on February 28th for reasons that do not have legal validation. The conflict is threatening oil and gas flows through the Gulf, and that is pushing global energy prices up. Higher energy prices drive inflation in countries like the UK. The amount of harm this conflict causes households will depend on how long it lasts. So Keir Starmer's job is to try to bring this war to an end as soon as possible. Oil prices are not just about petrol. They feed into almost every part of the economy. When oil rises sharply, it pushes up the cost of petrol and diesel, electricity and gas generation, shipping and transport, fertilizer and chemicals, plastics and manufacturing inputs. That means food, goods, transport and energy are all going to become more expensive. About 20% of global oil normally passes through the Strait of Hormuz, so disruption there immediately tightens supply and pushes prices up worldwide. The speed of the current shock has alarmed economists. Oil has surged above $100 per barrel for the first time since 2022, and prices could reach $150 if Gulf exports halt for any length of time. Energy costs feed directly into inflation expectations and interest rates, so markets react quickly, meaning prices rise quickly too. The UK is unusually sensitive to energy shocks for three reasons. Heavy reliance on global gas markets. Even though the UK produces some energy, prices are largely set internationally. The economy is already fragile. Growth has been weak and household budgets are tight. And interest rates are still high. If inflation rises again, the Bank of England may delay cutting rates. This is already happening, with mortgage rates being repriced upward and markets now planning for fewer or slower rate cuts, meaning higher prices and borrowing costs. There are three possible scenarios for the likely impact on inflation. The best case is a temporary spike if the conflict de-escalates quickly and shipping resumes. Oil would fall back toward $80 to $90 per barrel. UK inflation would rise by about 0.3 to 0.5 percentage points, and energy bills would rise slightly, but not dramatically. This would be painful, but manageable. The medium case would involve disruption for months, with prices hovering around $100 to $120 per barrel. UK inflation could jump 1 to 2 percentage points, interest rate cuts could be delayed, petrol could rise by 10 to 20 pence per litre, and food inflation could begin rising again. This would feel very similar to the situation in late 2022. The worst case would be a major shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. If the conflict escalates and oil hits $150, inflation could surge by 3 percentage points or more. Central banks might raise interest rates again. The risk of recession would rise sharply, and energy bills and transport costs would leap. That would start to look like a stagflation shock. High inflation alongside stagnant economic growth and rising unemployment. Probable near-term effects here in the UK are petrol prices rising within days, food inflation creeping back, mortgage relief delayed, and transport and airline costs increasing. In other words, the Labour government's hoped-for drop in living cost pressure may stall. The most obvious casualty will be the much-touted £117 per year fall in energy prices that was due to come into effect from the beginning of April. The energy price cap for the 3 months from April to June has already been fixed, so an average saving of around £29 for that period will happen, but the cap from July onwards will be calculated from current wholesale prices, and if they surge now because of a crisis manufactured by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the July cap will reflect it. The first forecasts are already grim. Energy analysts are warning that the next cap could jump again, with one projection suggesting the average bill could rise to about £1,800 a year by July, roughly £160 higher than the April level. If that happened, households would be roughly £40 worse off than today. Reeves's price cut would be obliterated, and her energy bills falling message would collapse humiliatingly quickly. And there is a deeper risk underlying everything, that this is the third global inflation shock in 5 years. Each has reset prices higher. That is why markets reacted so sharply. People fear the world is entering a permanent era of geopolitical inflation. If so, then UK government ministers will need a plan to cope with it, not only to stop most of us from going under as the cost of living rises out of control, but also to save their own careers.